The stars were quiet, but the silence carried weight. In the black stretch of space, a hidden memory was buried, an old warning, one that many civilizations had chosen to ignore. Records spoke of humans, a species from a small blue planet, who once fought wars so terrible that galaxies whispered about them for centuries. Some called them destroyers. Some called them protectors. But all agreed on one thing: humanity was not to be provoked. Time passed. Civilizations rose and fell. The warnings turned into myths, then into stories told to children, and finally into silence. Nobody truly believed humans could still matter in a galaxy so advanced, so vast. After all, Earth had been quiet for generations. They had not expanded, had not conquered, had not even appeared in the great councils of stars. To most, they were forgotten. But forgotten things have a way of returning. It began on the edge of a trade route, near a lonely colony of the Valen people. The Valens were merchants, peaceful and careful, but they had enemies. Raiders from the Karth Dominion struck without mercy, burning ships, stealing cargo, and enslaving survivors. On one such night, a signal went out, a desperate cry for help. The colony knew no one would answer. The great fleets were too far, the councils too slow. Yet someone did hear it. A human listening station on the cold moon of Europa picked up the transmission. The crew stared at the signal, unsure. Most of them had never spoken to another species. Humanity had withdrawn long ago, choosing to guard their own worlds rather than chase the galaxy. But the words in that cry were clear: they are killing us. Someone, anyone, please help. Commander Elias Wren of the station leaned forward, his heart pounding. The signal was not meant for humans, but it had reached them all the same. He remembered the stories told by his grandfather, who had fought in the last great war. Stories of honor, of fire, and of promises made long ago, that humanity would never turn away from the helpless. And so, he made a decision. The station relayed the message to Earth. The response came faster than anyone expected. Within hours, orders were issued. Humanity would not stay silent. Forgotten warnings were about to be remembered. While the councils of the galaxy debated laws and treaties, humanity prepared for war. Old ships, kept in hidden docks, came alive again. Engines that had not burned for decades roared back to life. Weapons, once locked away, were rearmed. In the dark hangars beneath Mars, legends of steel awakened. The first fleet moved quietly, without fanfare, without speeches. Humanity did not announce what they were about to do. They simply moved, efficient, silent, and focused. Meanwhile, on the colony of the Valens, the raiders were returning. Fires burned in the night. Families hid in basements, waiting for the inevitable. The sky shook with the thunder of enemy cannons. And then, something unexpected happened. New lights appeared in orbit, cold, sharp, and disciplined. Human ships, angular and scarred, descended without warning. The raiders scanned them, confused. These vessels were old, ancient by galactic standards, but their signatures were unlike anything the raiders had seen before. Weapons locked. Targeting systems hummed. The first shots were fired. Not by the raiders. Not by the Valens. But by the humans. The forgotten warnings had been true. When humanity fights, they fight with a fury that does not fade, with a precision that terrifies, with a resolve that no enemy expects. The first volley cut through the raider fleet like glass breaking under pressure. In seconds, ships that had once terrorized the stars were burning wreckage. The Valens, watching from the ground, could not believe it. The raiders had ruled their skies for years, but now, in the span of minutes, they were broken. The humans had come, not for conquest, not for riches, but simply because a cry for help had reached them. As the last raider ship exploded in the black sky, Commander Elias stood on his bridge, staring into the flames. He knew what this meant. Humanity had stepped back into the galaxy's light. They had shown their hand, reminded everyone of the warnings. Across the stars, in hidden rooms and quiet councils, other species would soon hear of this. Some would fear. Some would plan. And some would remember what they had once sworn never to forget. You do not provoke humanity. Because when the first shots are fired, the galaxy learns the truth. The smoke had not cleared when whispers began to spread. Across the colony of the Valens, survivors stepped out of broken homes and ruined shelters, staring at the sky. Pieces of raider ships still burned as they fell like dying stars. For the first time in years, the people of the colony saw the night without fear. They saw the impossible, an enemy defeated in minutes. And they saw the newcomers, the humans, standing in the light of victory. Commander Elias Wren remained on his ship's bridge. His crew, young and untested in true battle, stared in silence at the wreckage outside. None of them had expected the fight to end so quickly. Yet Elias was not smiling. His eyes were cold, his mind sharp. He knew this was not the end. This was the beginning. On the ground, the Valens gathered near the landing site where a human shuttle descended. Its engines roared, cutting through the dust, before it landed with heavy precision. The hatch opened. For the first time in centuries, aliens laid their eyes on humans. Not in legend, not in myth, but in flesh and blood. The soldiers stepped out first. They were tall, armored, faces hidden by steel visors. Each movement was disciplined, silent, and precise. Behind them, Commander Elias appeared. He wore no helmet. His face showed the calm of a man who had already accepted what was coming. The Valens hesitated. Their leader, Elder Soren, an aged figure with silver skin and tired eyes, stepped forward. His voice shook, not from fear, but from disbelief. "You came," Soren said softly. "No one ever comes." "Why?" Elias looked at him for a long moment before answering. "Because you called for help." Simple words. But they carried weight. For the Valens, who had cried out to the galaxy for years without an answer, those words struck deeper than any weapon. Some fell to their knees. Others wept. Yet above the emotion, shadows lingered. Far away, in the command ships of the Karth Dominion, reports arrived. Their raiding fleet had been destroyed. By humans. The Karth warlord, Zelther, read the message with narrowed eyes. He remembered the warnings, the tales of humanity's brutality in old wars. Many had laughed at those stories, calling them exaggerated. But Zelther did not laugh. He growled, slamming his clawed hand against the table. "If the humans have returned," he snarled, "then we must remind them of their place. No forgotten species will challenge the Dominion." He ordered a fleet. Bigger, stronger, prepared. The Karth would not allow this insult to stand. Back on the colony, humanity worked quickly. Their engineers repaired what they could. Their soldiers gave food, water, and medicine. But Elias knew the truth. This act of mercy would draw fire. The galaxy would not ignore humanity now. Too many eyes would turn toward Earth. Too many powers would feel threatened. Night fell on the colony. Fires burned low. Families huddled together, whispering about their saviors. Children dared to smile. For once, they did not dream of death. They dreamed of tomorrow. In orbit, Elias called his fleet together. His officers gathered in the strategy room, faces lit by the glow of holomaps. "They will come," Elias said. "The Dominion will not forgive this. And when they come, they will come with strength. We must be ready." One officer, Lieutenant Mara, leaned forward. "Sir, if we fight them here, the colony will be destroyed. The Valens won't survive a full battle." Elias nodded. "Which is why we won't fight them here." He tapped the map. Stars shifted, showing nearby systems. "We take the fight away from the helpless. We draw the Dominion to us. If humanity is to be remembered, let it be remembered as a shield, not a sword." The officers agreed. Orders were sent. Ships moved into new formations. Silent engines carried them into the void, preparing for what would come. On the ground, Elder Soren watched the human ships depart. He turned to his people. "They are not conquerors," he whispered. "They are guardians. The old warnings were true, but not as we feared. Perhaps they are hope. But in the darkness between stars, the Karth fleet was already on its way. Dozens of warships, armed and ready, moved with hunger. And behind them, in secret halls across the galaxy, others began to take notice. Spies carried news. Councils argued. Old enemies whispered. Humanity had fired the first shots. And now, the galaxy would answer. The human fleet moved quietly through the dark. Their ships carried no banners, no shining colors. Only steel and silence. They were hunters now, searching for the enemy they knew would come. Commander Elias Wren stood at the center of his flagship, the Resolute, eyes fixed on the endless stars. He did not smile, did not relax. He knew the next battle would not be so simple. Behind him, his officers whispered. Some were eager, their blood burning after the victory at the Valen colony. Others were tense, knowing that what they had done had already shaken the galaxy. Humanity had stepped into the open. There would be no going back. Lieutenant Mara broke the silence. "Sir, reports confirm. Dominion forces are mobilizing. Their fleet is twice our size, maybe more. They'll be here within 2 days." Elias nodded slowly. "Then we must decide where we bleed." The map before them shifted, showing systems of stars, trade routes, and unclaimed void. Most places were crowded with colonies, stations, or fragile worlds. But Elias pointed at a barren system. No life, only rocks and gas. "Here," he said. "We fight them where no innocence will burn." His officers exchanged glances. It was dangerous. To lure an enemy so powerful into open space required precision, discipline, and courage. But the humans had all three. They had trained in silence for decades, waiting for a day like this. While the fleet moved into position, word spread beyond the Dominion. Across the galaxy, species that had forgotten humanity began to hear the stories. Some laughed. Others shook their heads. Humans. They are primitives, nothing more. But a few did not laugh. A few remembered the old warnings carved into archives, the records of wars long past. Those few felt a chill, as if old ghosts were stirring. On the Karth flagship, Warlord Zelther sharpened his claws across the steel table. His eyes glowed with fury. "They think they can strike my raiders and walk away? They think we will let this insult stand." His voice thundered across the command chamber. "We will crush them. We will tear the name of humanity from the stars forever." The Dominion fleet surged forward, engines burning with hunger. Dozens of warships, larger and stronger than anything the Valens had ever seen, cut through the void. Soldiers cheered, believing the humans would fall easily. They had numbers. They had firepower. What did the humans have? They would soon learn. In the silent system chosen by Elias, the human fleet prepared. Their ships were older, smaller, but each one carried something rare, discipline born of countless battles long forgotten. Humans did not fight with arrogance. They fought with memory, with scars, with a history of survival that no enemy could erase. The crew of the Resolute checked weapons, reinforced shields, and repeated drills. They spoke little. Every man and woman knew what was coming. Some were afraid. Some were eager. All were ready. Night inside the ship was quiet. Elias walked the decks, speaking softly to his crew. He did not give speeches. He gave presence. And his presence was enough. Soldiers who had trembled stood straighter. Officers who had doubted felt certain again. Humanity had always fought like this, not with empty words, but with unshakable resolve. At dawn cycle, sensors flared. The Dominion fleet had arrived. The black sky lit with red as enemy ships poured into the system. Their numbers filled the void, like a storm of metal. The humans watched silently from their positions, hidden in the rocks of the asteroid belt. Elias stood on his bridge, calm as the first predator entered the trap. "Hold," he whispered. The Dominion ships spread out, scanning. Their commanders mocked the silence. "Where are they?" one sneered. "Have they run already?" Elias waited. Every second mattered. The Dominion moved closer, unaware. "Now," Elias said. The void exploded. Human ships emerged from the rocks, engines flaring. Their first strike was precise, brutal, and shocking. Missiles streaked through the darkness, smashing into the largest Dominion cruisers. Railguns fired with thunder, cutting enemy hulls apart. In seconds, the mighty fleet of the Dominion was bleeding. But the humans did not stop. They moved like shadows, striking fast and vanishing, never staying in the enemy's sights. Dominion commanders shouted in rage, trying to bring order. But humans had already written the rhythm of the battle. Still, the Dominion had numbers. Their ships regrouped, turning their firepower toward the humans. Explosions ripped through the asteroid belt. One human ship was lost, then another. The void became fire and chaos. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. Elias gripped the rail. "Stay on them. Do not break." The humans pressed forward. Every loss fueled their fury. Every shot reminded the galaxy of the old warnings. And then it happened, an explosion so bright it blinded the stars. One of the Dominion's battleships, thought to be unstoppable, was torn apart by human fire. The shock rippled through both fleets. The Dominion, for the first time, hesitated. The humans, for the first time in centuries, roared. The battle was only beginning, but one truth had already returned to the galaxy. Humanity was not to be underestimated. The battlefield was fire and silence all at once. Wreckage floated in the dark, twisted metal glowing with the last heat of battle. The Dominion fleet had been struck hard, harder than they had ever expected. But they were not finished. Their numbers still outmatched the humans. Their weapons still burned. And their warlord, Zelther, was not a creature who accepted defeat. On his flagship, the Bloodfang, Zelther's voice thundered across the bridge. "Do you see? Do you see what they are? They are dangerous. The stories were not lies. They are the monsters of the past. Crush them. Burn them. Let the galaxy watch them die." His commanders obeyed, their ships surging forward with renewed fury. The Dominion tightened their formation, learning quickly from their losses. No longer would they chase shadows. Now they pressed together, a wall of firepower, forcing the humans into direct combat. On the Resolute, Commander Elias Wren stood calm despite the storm. His crew was weary, their faces pale with exhaustion. But his eyes were sharp, unbroken. He had expected this. "They will come harder now," Elias said quietly. "They know what we are." Lieutenant Mara leaned over her console, sweat dripping from her brow. "Sir, our flanks won't hold against that kind of push. We'll be overwhelmed." Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "Then we make them bleed before they reach us." The humans adjusted their tactics. They spread mines across the belt, hidden in the shadows of asteroids. They forced the Dominion into narrow channels, where their numbers could not swarm freely. Every step forward was paid for in fire. But the cost was heavy. One by one, human ships fell. Explosions lit the black sky, each loss shaking the fleet but never breaking it. The crews did not beg for retreat. They fought because they understood. This was not only about a colony. This was about memory. This was about proving to the galaxy that the warnings had not been myths. Humanity was still here. Humanity still fought. On the surface of a barren moon nearby, Valen refugees, rescued from their colony and brought here by the humans, watched the battle from shelters. They could see the explosions like stars dying overhead. Children asked questions. Elders prayed. Elder Soren whispered as he stared at the sky, "They are fighting for us, but also for themselves." Back in orbit, the Dominion's fire grew hotter. The asteroid belt, once humanity's shield, was being torn apart by sheer force. The Resolute shook with every impact. Consoles sparked. Smoke filled the bridge. Yet Elias did not move from his station. "Hold the line," he ordered. Every minute we hold is another reminder to the galaxy. And then, through the chaos, came a sound the humans had not heard in centuries, an ancient code on the comms. It was a signal, faint but clear. Another human fleet was arriving. Reinforcements. Cheers erupted across the ships. Hope surged. For the first time, Elias allowed himself a small smile. So, he said, the galaxy will see more than warnings. They will see unity. But Zelther saw it too. His fury grew. His claws dug into steel until blood dripped from his hand. So be it, he roared. If humanity wants war, then war they shall have. No mercy. No survivors. Erase them. The Dominion fleet shifted, preparing for a final, crushing strike. Their engines glowed red, their weapons fully charged. They would throw everything at the humans, even if it cost them. The humans, battered but unbroken, tightened their formation. They stood together, shields overlapping, weapons aimed. The stars themselves seemed to hold their breath. The first shots of the final clash were about to be fired. And in that moment, the galaxy understood something forgotten for too long. The humans were not hiding anymore. They were awake. The stars shook with thunder. The Dominion's warships pressed forward, their fire tearing through the asteroid belt. Human ships burned, one after another, but still they did not retreat. They fought with precision, every strike meant to wound, every sacrifice meant to hold the line. The void had become a graveyard of steel. And then the sky changed. New signals lit the sensors. Dozens of them. Human reinforcements. Ships that had been silent for generations now entered the battlefield, their engines burning like fire in the dark. These were not old scouts or border guards. These were the legends, the hidden guardians humanity had built in secret, waiting for the day they would be needed. When they arrived, the balance shifted. The Dominion fleet, once confident, faltered as fresh human vessels formed a wall of steel. Their shapes were sharp and angular, their weapons glowing with power unseen in centuries. The Dominion commanders shouted orders, but fear spread through their crews. On the Resolute, the bridge shook as Elias Wren watched the new fleet enter formation beside him. His comm crackled. A familiar voice came through. Admiral Thorne reporting. "You've done well holding the line, Commander. Now let us show them what humanity truly remembers." Elias allowed himself the smallest breath of relief. Humanity was no longer alone. The counterattack began. Human ships moved like a blade cutting through the dark. Their formations were tight, every strike coordinated. Missiles streaked through space, railguns hammered, and beams of plasma carved across enemy shields. One by one, Dominion warships fell. But this was not only destruction, it was rescue. Behind the human lines, shuttles broke away, diving toward the moon where the Valen refugees waited. Dominion raiders had already sent ground forces there, hunting survivors. Now the humans landed with precision, their soldiers pouring into the battle. Valens hid in caves and shelters, waiting for the end. They expected to see Dominion claws tear through the doors. Instead, the walls shook with explosions, and the doors opened to reveal armored human soldiers. Their visors glowed, their rifles hummed. And when they spoke, their voices carried calm and certainty. "You're safe now. Stay behind us." The humans fought through the raiders with brutal efficiency. Every movement was calculated, every strike final. Valen children clung to their parents, watching wide-eyed as their rescuers moved like storm and shadow. For the first time in their lives, they felt what protection truly meant. Above, the battle reached its peak. The Dominion fleet tried to push, tried to break the human wall. But the humans did not break. They fought with something the Dominion could not understand: unity, sacrifice, and memory of every war they had survived before. On the Bloodfang, Warlord Zelther raged. His claws tore at his throne as he watched his ships burn. "Impossible," he roared. "They were supposed to be weak, forgotten. They cannot stand against us." But they did. And worse, they were winning. Elias stood firm on his bridge, giving orders with calm precision. His voice never wavered, even as his ship shook from enemy fire. He knew the truth. This battle was not just about victory. It was about sending a message. A message to every corner of the galaxy. The forgotten warnings were not myths. They were promises. One by one, Dominion ships fell back, their formations broken. Some tried to flee, engines burning toward the edges of the system. But the humans gave no mercy. Not this time. Not after so many had suffered under the Dominion's cruelty. Still, Zelther refused to retreat. His flagship pressed forward, weapons blazing, determined to break through the human line. His pride would not allow surrender. On the Resolute, Elias locked eyes with the image of the Dominion flagship on his display. He knew what had to be done. "All ships," he said, his voice steady, "target the warlord." Every gun turned. Every missile armed. The battle shifted once more, and the first strikes against the Bloodfang lit the sky like a new sun. The warlord had wanted proof of the warnings. Now he would see them with his own eyes. The battle reached a storm. The Dominion flagship, the Bloodfang, pushed through the flames, its massive frame glowing with fire. Though dozens of Dominion ships had already fallen, Warlord Zelther did not yield. His voice thundered across his command deck, shaking his crew. "Do not run. Do not fear. This is humanity's last breath. Tear it from them." His eyes burned as he watched the human fleet hold their line. Every maneuver, every strike, every sacrifice reminded him of the stories his ancestors had whispered. The warnings were true. Humanity was not weak. Humanity was not forgotten. Humanity was dangerous. And still, Zelther refused to retreat. On the Resolute, alarms screamed. Commander Elias Wren steadied himself against the shaking deck. His crew worked without panic, hands moving fast across glowing panels. Reports filled the air, damage to shields, losses on the flanks, engines burning. Yet not a single voice asked for retreat. Lieutenant Mara shouted from her station. "Sir, the Bloodfang is pushing straight toward us. If it breaks through, we'll lose the formation." Elias stared at the warlord's ship, its claws of metal cutting through the dark. "Then we hold here. If the Dominion wants to break us, they'll have to go through us first." The order spread. Human ships tightened, closing ranks, forming a shield wall of steel and fire. Missiles lit the sky. Railguns boomed. Plasma beams carved across the void. The Dominion pressed harder, their weapons tearing into the human line. And then, the Bloodfang fired. A beam of crimson energy split the darkness, striking a human cruiser. The ship exploded in silence, its burning fragments scattering across space. The shock rippled through the fleet. Another shot followed, then another. Each one tore a hole in the human defense. Elias clenched his fists. "Focus all fire on that weapon. Break it before it breaks us." Every human gun turned toward the Bloodfang. Explosions rippled across its armor, tearing chunks of steel from its hull. But the warlord's ship was built to endure. It pushed forward, scarred but unbroken. On the ground below, Valen refugees watched the battle in fear. The night sky glowed red as enemy and human ships clashed overhead. Elder Soren whispered to his people, "Do not fear the fire. Fear is what the Dominion wants. Look at the humans. They do not fear. They stand." Above them, Elias stood unshaken. His eyes narrowed as the Bloodfang loomed closer. The Dominion fleet tried to circle, but reinforcements blocked their path. Humanity had turned the tide, but the warlord was still coming. "Sir," Mara said, her voice tense, "if the Bloodfang reaches us, it could cut the fleet apart." Elias nodded. "Then we stop it here. Signal Admiral Thorne. Prepare the hammer." Across the fleet, orders spread. Human ships shifted, forming a trap. The Dominion did not see it, too focused on the charge of their flagship. The hammer fell. Dozens of missiles, hidden in the wreckage of fallen ships, ignited at once. They streaked through the dark, striking the Bloodfang from every angle. Explosions ripped across its hull, tearing away armor, shattering engines. The warlord roared in rage as his ship shook. But still, the Bloodfang did not die. Zelther slammed his claws into his chair. Is this the fury they fear? I will show them real fury. Ram them. Ram their flagship. The massive ship turned, engines burning, aiming directly for the Resolute. On Elias's bridge, warning alarms flared red. Mara's voice broke. Sir, they're charging us. Elias stood tall. His voice was steady, even against the storm. Then we finish this. All power to forward batteries. Hold nothing back. The Resolute and the Bloodfang closed the distance, fire blazing between them. Every weapon screamed, every shield burned. The void lit with fire brighter than suns. And then, with a final roar, the two ships collided in a storm of flame and steel. The galaxy held its breath. Was this the end of humanity's return, or the final proof that the warnings had been true all along? The collision lit the void like a newborn star. The Resolute and the Bloodfang smashed together, fire tearing through steel, engines screaming before silence took them both. For a moment, the battlefield froze. Both fleets, human and Dominion alike, watched the two giants burn. Inside the Resolute, Commander Elias Wren was thrown across the deck. Smoke filled the air, sparks rained from broken consoles. His crew struggled, bloodied but alive. The ship was dying. The walls shook with every explosion. Yet Elias pulled himself up, gripping the railing with bloody hands. "Status," he shouted. Lieutenant Mara, her uniform torn, coughed through the smoke. Shields gone. Weapons failing. Engines almost gone. Elias looked to the screen. The Bloodfang loomed close, its hull torn open, flames pouring from its core. But its heart still beat. Warlord Zelther refused to die. On his bridge, the warlord dragged himself from the wreckage, his armor cracked, blood dripping from his jaw. His crew lay dead or dying, but his fury kept him standing. "Humans," he growled, his voice echoing. "You think you can kill me? I will drag you into death with me." His flagship's weapons powered for one last shot. On the Resolute, Elias stood straight. His body trembled, but his voice was firm. "We will not fall here. Humanity does not bow. Aim the core cannon." Mara's eyes widened. "Sir, that will destroy us." "It will destroy them," Elias cut in. His gaze was sharp, unyielding. "Do it." The order was carried out. The dying engines of the Resolute bled their last power into the forward cannon. The ship shook, metal screaming, systems burning. The weapon charged, glowing brighter and brighter. Across the void, Zelther's eyes widened. For the first time, the warlord felt fear. "Fire," Elias whispered. The cannon unleashed its final breath. A beam of white fire tore through the dark, striking the Bloodfang directly. The Dominion flagship erupted in a storm of light, its hull breaking apart, its core igniting into a sun of destruction. Zelther's roar was swallowed by fire as his ship was consumed. The shockwave tore across the battlefield, shaking both fleets. Human ships braced. Dominion vessels scattered. And when the light faded, the Bloodfang was gone. Silence fell. The Dominion fleet broke. Without their warlord, their will collapsed. Ships turned, engines burning for retreat. The once mighty Dominion, who had terrorized colonies and enslaved worlds, now fled before the humans they had once called forgotten. On the dying Resolute, cheers erupted across the broken bridge. Tears mixed with blood and ash as the crew embraced. Mara turned to Elias. "Sir, we did it." Elias gave a small nod. His strength was fading, his body broken, but his eyes still burned. "No. Humanity did it. Remember that." The ship groaned, its hull collapsing. Rescue shuttles from the new fleet arrived, pulling survivors from the wreckage. Elias was among the last to be carried out, unconscious but alive. On the ground below, the Valen refugees watched the Dominion flee. Elder Soren raised his voice so all could hear. "Do you see? The warnings were true. Humanity is not myth. Humanity is not gone. They stood when no one else would. Remember this day, for the galaxy will never forget it again. And across the stars, news spread faster than light. Spies carried stories. Councils argued in panic. Some races cheered in secret. Others trembled. But all agreed on one thing. The old warnings had been true. Humanity was dangerous. Humanity was powerful. Humanity was awake. For the first time in centuries, Earth's name was spoken with both fear and hope. And in the shadows of the galaxy, enemies began to plan. Allies began to wonder. The game of stars had changed. But for now, as the smoke of battle cleared and survivors were carried to safety, one truth shone brighter than the wreckage of war. Humanity had answered the call. And the first shots had proven what the galaxy had forgotten. You do not provoke them. Because when humans rise, they rise for all.